Hi everybody, my name is Jacob Sauer, and I'm a Luther College High School alumnus. I wanted to speak at a chapel because this is a challenging period of time for so many families. I'm sure that many of you are uncertain about your future, stressed about finishing the semester remotely, and overwhelmed with how much your responsibilities have grown. But I'm here to tell you that attending Luther is the best way for you to overcome this adversity, and this is why. The decision for me to attend Luther created a combination of excitement and uncertainty. People we knew told us that Luther had a unique atmosphere of community and solidarity, but I was nervous nonetheless. I was the only person to attend Luther from my elementary school, and aside from a handful of people who I met at student orientation and student information nights, I didn't know anybody going into high school. I actually have a vivid memory of walking through the Royal Street doors on my first day of grade 9 thinking, what am I doing here? But I almost immediately learned that what I had been told about Luther's culture and atmosphere was true. Essentially everyone that I met in my first month was patient, courteous, and helpful. It didn't matter what my issue was, if I wasn't sure where to find a classroom, or I couldn't find relevant research for an assignment, or if I didn't know what clothes I needed to wear to play basketball in the gym at lunch. These people were very accommodating no matter the issue, and they took time to ensure that I was actually learning and adjusting to the environment. It was certainly inspiring to be exposed to such a welcoming and caring staff, and I was equally amazed by the conduct of the students. There was a vast distribution of appearances, interests, and skill sets among the student body, and it didn't take long for cliques and friend groups to be established. But in stark contrast to what I experienced in elementary school, the Luther community not only accepted this variety, but actually celebrated it. I remember eating lunch in the cafeteria one day, and midway through the period, one of our classmates who had few friends and was known for his unorthodox behavior walked up to our table and started talking to us. He stayed at our table for several minutes, and I was astounded at how my friends treated him. They listened to what he was saying, they engaged with him, and after he walked away, not a single person at the table made fun of him. I remember just sitting there quietly, sort of spying the table, waiting for somebody to snidely comment or mimic his mannerisms, but nothing happened. And that was not my experience in elementary school. Throughout my first year at Luther, I was taught by so many teachers who were caring, nurturing, and heavily invested in their students. There are many amazing teachers at Luther, and I'd love to mention all of them by name, but due to time constraints, I'll only be able to name a few. When I wasn't happy with my grade on the History 9 midterm, Mr. Dewick had lunch with me several times. We reviewed my midterm, and he offered suggestions on how to better manage my time and provide deeper insight in my written work. Not only was he patient, even if I asked question after question after question, but he genuinely seemed delighted to help. I also had two excellent English teachers. One of them is now retired, and the other is Mrs. Woods. They were both willing to review numerous drafts of my essays and oral presentations. Both were fully committed to helping us improve our wording, guiding us to significant themes, taking command of in-class conversations, and using creative techniques to help us learn that any and all arguments are valid as long as they could be defended. My experience with my grade 9 teachers was overwhelmingly positive. They were caring, passionate, patient, and driven to cultivate an environment where new ideas were encouraged and students were pushed to put forth their best effort. I also want to highlight the way that Luther's culture emanated from non-academic school events. One of my classes in my first semester was Music 9, and a component of that class is to perform in the handbell choir at Luther's candlelight service. Prior to high school, I had never even heard of handbells, let alone used them. So the handbell choir, I felt, was such a unique and effective way to integrate the grade 9 students into the Luther culture. I was also involved in Christian Club in grade 9. Thanks to Mr. Steve and a grade 12 student leader, we were able to have open and mature discussions about our faith, and I know that I became a stronger Christian as a result. At the end of grade 9, any suspicions or doubts that I had about attending Luther had resoundingly vanished. In grade 10, I was once again a motivated student who had also found his niches in the school's extracurriculars and electives. One such niche was film class. Mr. Willamot established an environment where the students could dictate the direction of their projects, and the knowledge that he was confident in our abilities allowed us to challenge ourselves and explore some of the intricacies of film production. Next, I took advantage of an excellent course selection feature where students can take courses that are taught outside of their grade level. In grade 10, for example, I enrolled in pre-IB math, or IB prep math, and grade 11 sciences. In IB Prep Math, Mr. Graff did a phenomenal job of teaching the course concepts in necessary detail while also making sure that we remained on the course's strict schedule. And true to its name, the course was excellent preparation for the workload of the actual IB program. I also had the opportunity to take Physical Science 20 with Mr. Becker. Mr. Becker's natural ability to incorporate humor into his teaching style resulted in a classroom experience that was highly enjoyable and informative, and also allowed us to connect with him on a personal level. I'll always remember the day that he yelled at a faulty calculator, "I own you! You do not own me!" just to ease the tension before a midterm. In addition, the Luther English program continued to captivate in room 113 with Dr. Anderson. Dr. Anderson's humble and humorous style prompted us to delve into material and not be afraid to think independently. His genuine love for teaching created a truly positive and constructive classroom experience, with no shortage of contextually appropriate jokes and puns. My personal favorite was when he signed his own name as Brave McAnderson for a quiz on Act 2 of Macbeth. Lastly, Christian Ethics 10 with Mrs. Bollinger was an extremely enjoyable experience. Her ability to guide us through doctrines and theologies of major world religions led to creative group projects and the discovery of the Hindu concept of Brahman. Brahman literally means everything. It is the supreme essence of Hindu culture, and this naturally birthed a running joke in which we attempted to answer Brahman to every question, in every unit, every day, ever. In grade 10, I once again found that my teachers were wholeheartedly committed to their students and truly passionate about the subjects that they taught. Throughout my first 2 years, I had grown to love and appreciate the Luther atmosphere, but I had largely been a recipient of others' efforts in creating this atmosphere. In grades 11 and 12, I enrolled in the IB certificate program, and although the creativity, action, service component is only a requirement for IB diploma, I still felt called to follow its principles and develop as both a student and a citizen during my last 2 years of high school. As such, in grades 11 and 12, I made much more of an effort to contribute and serve the Luther community. The first few months of the IB program were extremely challenging. I quickly learned that my typical strategy of memorizing facts and details and neglecting to develop higher-level connections between course concepts was ineffective, and that I would need to reinvent myself as a student in order to succeed. I owe a great deal of thanks to teachers like Mrs. Ostheim, who read draft after draft after draft of my first IB English essay and provided detailed feedback at every turn. Mr. Frostad, whose engaging teaching style kept us steady and focused throughout a long 2-year IB biology course. And Dr. Akulov, whose extensive knowledge of mathematics and genuine care for his students made him patient and effective at answering questions. Having constant support and guidance from these teachers was crucial considering the difficulty of the IB workload, especially in the second semester when more of the tasks became self-directed. Along with a greater academic challenge, I became increasingly involved in Luther's extracurricular activities. I had played on the curling and badminton teams in grade 9 and 10, but in grade 11 my participation increased for both, as I had the opportunity to captain a curling team and regularly compete in the weekly badminton meets. Outside of athletics, I volunteered on the sound crew for the musical and Candlelight, and also on the Odd Jobs Committee for LIT as a public address announcer. Sound crew and public address were among the various options for involvement in service that I honestly never expected would be possible. By volunteering in these areas, to which I felt a personal connection, and observing so many of my fellow students fill other, similarly obscure roles, it was truly incredible to witness the Luther community come together and deliver on so many amazing events. It was also a pleasure to work with my teachers in a non-classroom setting. Dr. Anderson on the badminton court, Mr. Becker with the Odd Jobs Committee, and Mr. Barras on both the curling rink and with the sound crew. Grade 11 was definitely the first year in which I truly lived and breathed Luther, and it was amazing, consistently amazing, to see the students, faculty, and staff come together with the goal of creating a community. In grade 12, even more opportunities became available. 2 of my friends and I founded the Luther Business Club, which attracted other dedicated members, and thanks to our club advisor, Mr. Pearson, met throughout the school year. The most memorable experience with Business Club was attending a luncheon organized by Junior Achievement with 2 friends and President Hillis. I also became involved with the LIVT Concessions Committee, which provided another chance to work with Mr. Barras and meet some of the newer students. And finally, being a part of LIT 2017 was the highlight of my entire high school career. As head of the Odd Jobs Committee, I learned about so many of the intricacies of running the tournament, and I experienced many of these firsthand. It was such a rewarding experience to be able to collaborate with teachers and students alike, and witness the overall community's effort pay off in the form of an indescribably entertaining tournament. As my high school career drew to a close, I had one final opportunity to learn from many of my favorite teachers and seek their guidance as I began to anticipate my future. I enjoyed taking Physics 30 with Mr. Becker, who characteristically kept the classroom engaged and energized. History 30 with Mrs. Bollinger was extremely captivating because her passion for history was evident from the very first lecture. She worked with me very closely on my final history essay, providing line-by-line feedback with helpful edits and suggested points to add. Lastly, through a fourth and final year on the badminton team, as well as 2 semesters of IB English, I had the absolute privilege of working with Dr. Anderson on a daily basis. In grade 12 IB English, we studied a variety of compelling and difficult works, such as Hamlet, The Great Gatsby, Fifth Business, and 1984. Dr. Anderson assisted us at every turn by gently guiding us to the conclusions and insights that were most significant, providing detailed feedback on our written work, advising us on how to prepare for exams, and characteristically maintaining his penchant for contextually appropriate humor. He taught us that the second act of Hamlet would be the pinnacle of our entire lives, and that afterwards everything would simply devolve into death and taxes. He also continued to be a coach, a mentor, and a friend during my last season on the badminton team. And even when I suffered a minor health lapse at the end of grade 12, it was he, Mrs. Ostheim, and Mr. Steeb who visited me in the hospital, which was truly amazing. The last few months of grade 12 were extremely challenging. Yes, there were many late nights working on essays, lab reports, IB assignments, and final exam study guides, but the primary issue that I faced was coming to terms with leaving. For 4 years, the Luther culture had consistently astounded me, captivated me, and inspired me. After witnessing student after student, teacher after teacher, and role model after role model selflessly serve the community time and time again, I truly fell in love with Luther, and I was distraught with the reality that in just a few short months I would be leaving. I spent these few months grieving and coming to terms with the next stage of my life. I graduated in June of 2017, and then I began a degree in software systems engineering at the University of Regina. Based on the events of my first 3 years, I wholeheartedly believe that Luther's academic culture breeds success at the university level. Luther provides opportunities for students to receive university credits through the IB program, which in turn eases the course load during the first few semesters. Next, there are several courses and topics, especially at the 100 level, that become significantly easier to adjust to because of the standards that Luther and the IB program encourage. For example, IB Calculus is a very challenging course to take in grade 12, but its content largely overlaps with Calculus 1 and 2 at the university level, so these students attain a significant advantage. Most importantly, Luther teaches its students how to effectively communicate through spoken and written work. These skills are invaluable not only for university assignments, but also for scholarship opportunities, research opportunities, and job applications. I found that because of Luther's influence, the transition from high school to university was not nearly as difficult as I was afraid it would be. I was primarily afraid of change, and of the various unknowns of a culture different from Luther's. But as I said, the skills that I learned are applicable to many different areas, and I simply learned to have faith in them, and trust in them. As I said at the beginning of this chapel, I imagine that many of you are experiencing similar fears to what I faced in my grade 12 year. In the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, life as we know it has been placed on an indefinite hiatus, and I'm sure that many of you are concerned with the uncertainty that lies ahead. I want you all to know that, regardless of the anxiety that you're feeling, how overwhelmed you are with your workload, whether you're not sure about enrolling in IB, or whether you've received an acceptance letter from your dream school, in this moment right now, you are so blessed to be able to attend Luther College High School. I hope that you believe in the community, and that you've experienced the beauty of its culture. I hope that you understand that the teachers, staff, and your fellow students made this culture what it is. Lastly, I hope for each of you that you'll trust in the invaluable skills, lessons, and experiences that you've learned during your time here. God bless you all.